There we go. Hello and welcome to the Astropub. My name is Paul Berserker01 Batman Shelley. Welcome to office hours. We move into the office here shortly. Just a reminder for those of you who are watching this later on YouTube that this is a live stream that I do to Twitch and YouTube at the same time. And if you want to come in and hang out, you just want to listen to something in the background, this is perfect for you. This is not my usual normal curated videos that I do with lore. It's not even as tight as Captain's Table, which is saying something. So sit back, relax, enjoy, but just know that ahead of time. That way you know, because I gotten more than a few people like, this is outrageous. Oh, this is not the video I was looking for, but you know. Anyways, let's get to the bar, shall we? Nope, that's not it. That's the wrong one. There we go. My hair is still messed up. I took a shower. That's why I was running a little bit late. Welcome, everybody. Let me switch this up to office hours. Make it a little bit easier. There we go. Welcome. Make some popcorn. Yeah. Grab something to drink. Get settled. You're here for the learning. That's good. Pancake? What's a what? I'm confused. Cut one live. Thank you. Welcome, Kodiak. Welcome, Daniel. Roy, Jet. Stay safe there, Roy. I lived in California for 18 years of my life. I'm very familiar with the yearly wildfires. I'm glad that I'm no longer there, but I feel sorry for folks who have to deal with it on a yearly basis. All right. Good morning, Jet. How you doing, buddy? Cali burning again? Cali burns every summer. It's just the reality. That's a completely different discussion. I don't know all the facts, so I can't speak 100% true on it. But when I lived there, I used to go every summer to a camp in the Sierra Nevadas. I helped run one, and for Boy Scouts. And one of the things that was a constant problem was we would try to do controlled burns and controlled logging. We'd cut down trees that were old and dead to burn them or to get them out of the way and try to clear out brush. And we'd always get pushback from the state and federal government for it. Because we're just like, we want to protect the camp. Like, if a fire starts, it's going to be bad. Because, you know, most of the people who were there, who were running the camp, were naturalists. People who wanted to end up becoming park rangers or work in the environment. We spent like 3 months in the wilderness by ourselves, teaching kids about like wilderness survival and going camping and hiking and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, we care. And we understood that like California's trees are designed to burn. That's how they recycle. Wildfires are part of the natural ecosystem, and humans have kind of stopped that. And if you don't clear out the brush, if you don't clear out dead trees, if you don't manage your forests properly, you're going to have this pretty much every year. And that was a problem that we had back in the early aughts. And so I don't know if that's still the case. It could be something completely different, but it's something I'm concerned about. Anyways, let's go on to Star Citizen. Sorry if I missed it. Any opinion on the new GW fan content policy? It's stupid. Okay. The last time we spent about 45 minutes not talking about Star Citizen, and someone put it in the comments. We start talking about Star Citizen at 45 minutes, so I'm not going to get too derailed. But for those of you who don't know, Games Workshop is run by idiots. It's run by absolute fools. Absolute morons. People who don't understand marketing. They don't understand the modern like kind of environment that they're living in, but pretend they do. So this will sound familiar for those of you who have followed gaming, but with Nintendo. Nintendo used to do this pretty frequently. Essentially, what GW Games Workshop has said is if any fan-made project makes any money whatsoever, that they will sue them for violation of IP infringement. Now, they're doing this. There's a lot of theories behind this, but essentially what this is trying to do is kill anyone who's making professional content with GW's licenses or with GW's products. So people who make fan animations and all sorts of things, and who had Patreons who they or turned on YouTube videos, YouTube monetization. Now it's no. You can't do that at all. You can't make any content that's GW related and take donations. Otherwise, they're going to come after you. And I really hope, I know Tyler well enough that he knows that's stupid. It's absolute suicide in the modern era. It's absolute suicide. It's asking to get, absolutely obliterated by people. Hey, thank you, Ben. It's been so since the 90s. It's not really been so since the 90s because in the last 10 years, they've been very relaxed on that policy. It made sense in the 90s. It doesn't make so much sense in the new market, in the new way that media is shared and the way that advertising works. Again, for full disclosure, I used to work as a marketing researcher. My parents were marketing researchers. They both worked for Clorox and Procter & Gamble for many years. And high up there, I think they were the regional directors of certain brands, national directors of certain brands at some point when they worked in Spain. So what I'm saying isn't me talking to my ass, but I don't have professional training. This is all hands-on stuff because I used to work for them because it was a family business. I used to work for them when I was, 17 through 20, just as a consultant and helping them to do a lot of busy work. So I absorbed a lot of this stuff through that experience, plus working as an influencer in the video game industry. I also have kind of picked up some of this. So as a result, the new meta of marketing is make it so that make it look like you're not marketing to people. That's the key. Don't directly market to people because people are smart enough to know what a direct marketing is. People hate commercials. People hate ads, period. And so you have to make ads in a way that don't seem like ads. Fan content is 100%, 1000% marketing content. This is an act. These are ads for CIG, for Star Citizen. They're not intended to be ads. I'm not sitting here saying go buy Star Citizen, but the fact that I'm making this content in the first place is an important thing because I like to do it, and CIG would be absolutely stupid to tell me I can't do it because I'm infringing on their IP. Because I'm technically doing that. There are ads on this video. There have been ads on other videos because YouTube doesn't promote shit unless it's added. It has ads on it. I have subs activated on Twitch, those sorts of things. So the idea that in the year of our Lord 2021, a company as big as Games Workshop is deciding to shut down fan projects because they're making a couple of $1,000s is absolutely insane. It's beyond stupid levels. Whoever is in charge of their marketing team or in charge of the legal team needs to be fired. Period. Exclamation point underlined. It's a dumb move. An absolute stupid move. Unless there is some obscure legal code in the UK where if someone is making money off of your IP in any way, you invalidate your IP, which I don't think exists. Plenty of video games companies in the UK don't do this. So then there is absolutely no reason for this to happen. And it's a cautionary tale because I think what's going to happen is in the near future, if GW doesn't reverse course really quickly on this kind of policy, they're going to find themselves with much better and bigger competition, especially since they don't pay their employees very well. There's a lot of talented people who make a lot of talented changes who could easily go form their own companies and do much better than what GW does. So I'm saying GW is doing really well right now, but they're shooting themselves in the foot. Yeah. LucasArts used to did the cease and desist lawsuits as well. It drove out a lot of fans. It does. It stops people from making content. You thought 314 was dropping? No, not that I know of. We do this every Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised if 314 drops tomorrow, though. Yeah, in the 90s, they used to do that. LucasArts used to send cease and desist letters to fan projects. Here's the thing, Stryker. GW is not suffering financially. They've been making more money in the last year than most other gaming companies in the UK. They're like one of the top 3 gaming companies, and they don't even make video games. Well, who is GW? Games Workshop. They're the company that makes Warhammer, Warhammer 40,000, the Lord of the Rings miniature games, and all the subsidiaries like Kill Team and Necromunda and all those other things as well. What do you think of the development with fires on ships? I like it. I like the idea. Here's the thing that is important to understand about development. By the way, this is an AMA, so you can ask any questions you have. I'll go over some of the other stuff that I have, like the Daymar Rally lore and looting inventories and how that's going to change the game. But CIG is not building a game that they're just building. This is not a typical. I need to shave really badly. CIG is not building a game like other game companies would. We talked about this with the Elite crew when I brought on those Elite commanders to talk about it. I think I hit it fairly close to what the situation is. What separates companies like Frontier Developers or Developments, I don't remember, so the FDev and CIG is that FDev's a gaming company. So at the end of the day, they have to make money. CIG, at the end of the day, is not a gaming company. They're a company that makes Star Citizen. As long as the money comes in for Star Citizen, the CIG devs will continue to build the game. And they're not in a rush. So they will build the basics of the game first and move on from there. The idea of fires is twofold. One, they're experimenting with the looks and the propagation of how it spreads. But 2, they're also looking at it in terms of repair mechanic. This is something that they want to do down the line as a way of adding realism to ships, while also allowing for players to run around and do something to try to stop the damage, but it also spread and do damage to other things. So Star Citizen is seeking to be both a sim and a fun game, which is a hard balance to make. But the idea of fires isn't just fire pretty, it's fire gameplay. Because you've got fires will cause repair gameplay, it'll also cause wear and tear, and they'll also require players to damage control, kind of deal with a damage control situation. And it also will cause things like oxygen to be consumed when they add back the ability to have like atmosphere in locations. So I joke, of course. Pitiful pancakes. Thanks for that Prime sub, my man. Can I buy Cloud Imperium stock? You're never going to. They're not a public game company. I don't think they ever will be. Chris Roberts is too obsessed with those sorts of things. What does an asset add? Immersion, gameplay, integrity. It adds both. It does all 3. And that's the key. And that's the thing to understand about it, is that it's not just immersion, but it adds gameplay. Because it'll add damage. That damage will then spread. You have to deal with it, which means you have to have a player who can fight the fire and then repair the damage. And that can happen in the middle of combat. And it also will consume oxygen, so you will consume a limited resource that you need to survive in a battle or in deep space. CIG seems to be very, very focused on making the game hardcore, but not in the way you think. Like right now, combat is just sort of a thing that happens. By the end of next year, I wouldn't be surprised if combat was incredibly rare. especially in places like Pyro. Not because it's like a bad, but like rare in the sense that when it happens, every action you take in that combat will matter. So one of the concerns that I've heard a lot from PvP community, and especially the combat PvP community, PvP mining, just, whatever. Thinking PvP. There's no other such thing as PvP, non-combat PvP. PvP trading. But in the PvP community is there needs to be a way of stopping people from running, because it's too easy to get into a fight and have people run. So I'm hoping that they take that into account when they're trying to build this. PvP should have a lot of risk. Combat should have a lot of risk. You know, CIG wants to make the space experience of Star Citizen to be as NASA as possible. Not necessarily super hardcore NASA, but like the idea of having to regulate your oxygen, your food, your water, your energy, all of these things is much more hardcore sim related. Though in your typical day-to-day going around Stanton, for instance, you don't really have to worry about that because you're in the middle of, you know, civilized space. But the second you go to the places that are more valuable, you can get more money, you know, those sorts of things, is when resources start dropping, infrastructure drops, and now suddenly you're Matt Damon on Mars with nothing but potatoes. You know, that kind of thing. It's in orbit, not floating. It just fires every so often to keep it in orbit. What was the explanation for Orison floats in the atmosphere without constant thrust? It's an atmosphere, yeah. It's orbiting. It's just the Orison itself is a low mass gas giant, so it's not it's like the size of Jupiter, but its actual mass is much smaller. So you can stay in the upper atmosphere, and as long as you keep up a certain speed, you can stay in the in orbit, as it were. Hey, Commissar, how are you doing, buddy? Thank you for that 9 months. That Twitch baby. Ship management like FPL, boarding, fires, equipment repair, all good gameplay for cap ships. Yes, that's the key. And that's the thing. All of these things are adding towards multi-crew gameplay. The whole idea of like fires are example, but medical gameplay, inventory gameplay, all of these are designed with multi-crew in mind. Because CIG is building a game that's based around people working together to complete tasks on a spaceship. It's Firefly, it's Star Trek, it's the Millennium Falcon, it's the Battlestar Galactica. It's all of these things put together to create its own universe. But it's that sort of encapsulating experience. Let's get some more beers in chat. We don't quite need DCS Universe. No, we don't need DCS Universe. But we do need something close. We need something that is close to sim without it being so sim it's not fun. Trade wars, mining claim wars, info wars. Wait, no. They're turning the frickin' Tavaran into the Banu. DCS is fun as fuck for a certain type of person. It may not be fun for your average gamer. It's fun for your average sim gamer, but Star Citizen isn't designed to be a sim game in the same way. And DCS itself isn't a sim. It's just more simmy than Star Citizen. Ships take a lot of people. We repair the middle of a battle, but we're assigned to DC damage control teams to make emergency repairs and shit. Sea of Thieves. I'm not going to say that this is 100% true, but I know a lot of DCS, a lot of CIG employees who play Sea of Thieves. So I wouldn't be surprised if you find lots of elements of Sea of Thieves into Star Citizen in terms of its multi-crew gameplay. And the thing about Sea of Thieves is that battles in Sea of Thieves are not decided by who is the best shooter. They're decided by who's the best repairer, who has the more resources, who has the quicker ability to repair and tactical thinking, who can end a battle faster. That's the how ships. Yeah, I mean that's true. But I mean, I was going to say that it works the same way. Arid Z, thank you so much for that 7 months of support on Twitch. The most realistically realized sim of the Star Wars universe. Yeah, guys, something like that. I wouldn't say. I think there's a bit of a negative connotation when you say things like arcadey, because a lot of people go like arcadey. I'm not here for an arcadey game. It's like arcadey gets this negative connotation as meaning worse and sim meaning better. And I get that from sim fans. That tends to be the thing. But the reality is that's not the case. You need a game that's fun, accessible, and scalable, and sims are not fun nor accessible. They're fun for a certain subset. Fun is more of a subjective term, but they're harder to approach. They're harder to get into. And if you don't have the right mindset, or if you don't have the right equipment, if you don't have the right desires, it's hard to do. So Star Citizen, even in its lore, is not seeking to be the high fantasy space epics of Star Wars, but it's not seeking to be the Expanse. It's seeking a middle ground between those two. Not quite Star Trek, but closer to Star Trek. There's a lot of hand-wavium for things, but in the end, it's not this super bright universe. I mean, it's 100% based on the Aliens franchise. Like Star Citizen, like many other science fiction games before it, takes heavy influence from Blade Runner and from Aliens. Those are the two heavy influences on the game's style and dramatic. I mean, the Reclaimer is basically the Nostromo. Area 18 is Los Angeles in the Blade Runner universe. If you, I mean, they have the freaking building in Lorville. You know, that's literally the I can't remember the name of the company, but from Blade Runner, it's that building. So if anything, it's more like that. That's the heavy inspiration. Prospector jousting? Yes. I'm hoping Star Citizen Control Star Citizen is a little bit easier to manage than Elite. Elite is a game where there are people who want to jump in, but the controls are too complex and they tap out in the first hour. I don't know if CIG will go that route. I think what we will see is the ships that are smaller are going to be easier to control. I imagine the Aurora is going to be incredibly easy and responsive. And then as you go through the lighter fighters and the medium fighters, they'll be more responsive and more control. But the second you jump from that fighter, that small ship, to the medium ship, is when you start to see the loss of control, harder to manage, and then you start going up and up and up and up in size, and the control goes down, 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 which is a scalable thing. So, Tyrell building, thank you. The Tyrell building, it's the same thing. Like CIG wears its influences on its sleeve. It's not hard to tell. Even in the storytelling, it's a lot more like Aliens. Like for instance, the story about Robert Space Industries. I mentioned this in a captain's table, but RobertSpaceIndustries.com was created because Chris liked Prometheus, the Prometheus promotional material, where they used WaylandYutani.com. And he liked that in lore, in fiction approach. I don't remember if it was just Chris, or if it was Chris and Ben, or if it was multiple people, but the team at CIG liked that idea. So they created RobertSpaceIndustries.com in the same vein. But they didn't buy StarCitizen.com for some reason. So they don't have StarCitizen.com. They may have it now, but last time I checked, they didn't have it. Which makes it confusing because, or CloudImperiumGames.com, which I think they have now. But, it makes it confusing because CIG, that's a whole different story about like how do you find stuff, but that's an example of like they wear their influences on the shoulder, on the sleeve. It was designed as that sort of similar thing. And here's the thing about the aliens in the universe, in the Blade Runner universe. Corporations are bad, actually, in those universes. They're the worst. They're literally the evil that, you know, like the aliens are bad, the xenomorphs are bad, but the real bad guys are, you know, Weyland-Yutani Corp. They're the real villains of the Aliens franchise. And CIG's lore reflects that, or Star Citizen's lore reflects that. Like, Robert Space Industries, I don't think will ever be entirely evil, but they're definitely not the good guys. There's a lot of corporate control in the UEE, to a degree, to a very heavy degree. So, like, that's the thing, is like CIG. The problem is that we see it from the happy, upbeat. Would you like to know more of the Starship Troopers style? And the reason why that is done is, I think, is more intentional, because it's done in a way that no one could imagine living without Anvil Aerospace, or Drake Interplanetary, or Aegis, or Castek Arms, or, you know, Consolidated Outland, or Terra Mills. These corporations aren't just corporations, they're parts of the UEE. So no one ever kind of questions why they exist and what their roles are. So all of the media we consume are from the perspective of people in the UEE, except for one, which is Booty Call, who is it's a literal pirate radio broadcast run by a pirate by the name of Jester. It goes by the handle Jester, who talks a lot about the life of a pirate, the life of an outlaw, and what is it like to be, you know, with the UEE. We also get some crazy conspiracy theories from like Sure Shot and other of those lore, you know, in lore fiction shows, which are shows in fiction, but we get the kind of write-ups of them every couple times. So, I smell the next hour on is coming on. Big Whammers own you, yeah, basically. So it's going to be like, I saw I going on this rant, but someone mentioned like this, like Star Wars. Like it's. And I remembered my comment about Robert Space Industries, and it kind of clicked in my head a little bit to how to explain it. Star Citizen is aliens. That's what it is. It's aliens and Blade Runner. More aliens than Blade Runner, but aliens. And then it has hefty doses of The Expanse in terms of its political intrigue. It has hefty influences of Battlestar Galactica in terms of its concept of like capital ship combat. And then, of course, it has a little bit of Star Wars thrown in for its dogfighting. You know, World War II in space is Star Wars. So it's a little bit elements of all these different parts, but its aesthetic, its story, its point is much more Blade Runner and Aliens. Games are slowly catching up to Star Citizen. Games have surpassed Star Citizen in terms of their looks. I'm not going to sit here and say CIG is the most beautiful, or Star Citizen is the most beautiful game in the universe. It's not. But considering the scale and considering what it's trying to do, it's definitely the best looking MMO. And I know people will say, Black Desert Online looks great. You just like titties, all right? Just because you like anime titties doesn't mean it's better. It's aesthetically pleasing, but the graphics themselves are still super low in terms of their quality. Oh, I gotta turn that off because they're not available for this one. I gotta set that up. I'll set it up for next week for those little sound bites. But I can already hear people in the comments in the YouTube section being like, "Why are there so many sounds, Paul? I came to hear to you, not to hear random shouts from Beltaloda." Solving world hunger, the energy crisis, invented interstellar travel, and they invented terraforming. Yeah. The Info Runners episode about Know Your Ship is still the best example of what combat in Star Citizen is going to evolve to. Crew skill, captaining, and especially engineers are crucial. Oh, yeah. What game did you say? Oh, BDO. Yeah, BDO. BDO is a good game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on BDO. They chose an aesthetic for their game that is more cartoony, but it's more in line of kind of like JRPGs. I know I think it's a South Korean game, if I remember correctly, but it's in more that style it's hyper aestheticized, similar to like Final Fantasy 14. They look good, but their aesthetic is good. I think Star Citizen is still, in terms of its scale, in terms of its fidelity, is still the best looking MMO and will continue to be the best looking MMO for a long time, just because of the sheer scope that it's trying to achieve. KRPG, if you will. I think maybe it's just my ignorance, but I find that a lot of aspects of JRPGs are copied by companies from China and South Korea, and other, that region, in terms of their style building. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, similar to like how Silicon Valley is where most, American Western games were first developed. A lot of that styles of like American, or we call it Western RPG style, but it's really an American style that was then imported to Europe and through just either for people who were working on it or those are the people who first encountered it. So. I missed the storm we saw in the convention at Microtech. We didn't see the massive destruction storm anymore. We'll see it again. I think they're working on the cloud tech. They're trying to improve the cloud tech and stuff. So, what do you mean by American? So, like for instance, Diablo, which was developed by Blizzard, which was I think originally from at that time especially was from Silicon Valley. The isometric third person, that kind of was also used by Bethesda, and like the isometric third person is something that is a very Western RPG, but I don't remember any games before that popularizing it. Then it was exported to Europe during that time stuff. Hey Paul, 30 seconds off topic. Build your new Orc Boys yet? WOG. Yes. I even got a boss, because it's one thing I don't have. I gave him a little cowboy hat. They're not painted, or primed yet, but gotta wait for the temperatures to drop and the humidity to drop. Yeah, Ultima Online was built in Austin. It's where it's very old. All right, so that was 38 minutes of mostly on topic stuff. Let's talk about other stuff. Wasn't Baldur's Gate ISO long before Blizzard took it? Let me look it up. I think Baldur's Gate was later, but even then, Baldur's Gate was created by Black Isle, wasn't it? Which was in the U.S. $1998 was when that was out. BioWare. BioWare is the one who made it, yeah. So. And then Diablo. '96. Diablo was released in '96. Baldur's Gate '98. So yeah. Oh, we'll talk a little bit about the lore. Yeah, that's the big thing. I haven't talked about it yet though, TS Forest. Jump Point is closed. We can't go out anywhere. Soon. Do I think player orgs will be able to influence factions in the game, i.e. lock down Loreville Attack HD with an in-game implications? Yes, easy. Let me talk about that here in a bit. So for those of you who don't know, there are two major in-lore events. Some people say that there's three, but I haven't seen any lore indications for the third one, but I'll go over them. So the first one was Jumptown. So Jumptown was put into lore shortly after Jumptown finished. So in, I think, April or May of 2019 was when it was officially put into lore. For those of you who don't know, the Jumptown Wars were a series of events based off of an accident. CIG misclicked something about essentially a mistake in the balancing made Widow incredibly valuable to sell. And the only place you could get Widow was at an unmarked location, which was known as Jumptown, that we knew it was called Jumptown because of it was its in-game name that you could do through the old transport beacons. One of the places you could go to for a long time was labeled Jumptown, and it would take you to that location. But you could only get Widow at Jumptown. You couldn't jump to Jumptown. You had to, hydrogen fuel boost your way, SCM boost your all the way down there. Luckily, it was pretty close to. It was on Yella. It's on Yella. It's pretty close to Grimhex. So people would often start at Grimhex, boost their way down, and then come back. And because everyone started to figure out where Jumptown was, and because it was one of the best ways of making money in the game, people began to lock it down, charge entry fees, clear it out so they can get their friends to come in and make money. It was this absolutely chaotic thing. And CIG then made it lore through a single post, which was essentially a subcommittee discussion about the security situation in Stanton, specifically with the CEO of Crusader Industries. And one of the senators essentially ambushed the CEO of Crusader Industries being like, "What's Jumptown?" And she's like, I'm sorry, what? And then the senator went off going like, I found out from my contacts, my staff here on Earth could find out about what Jumptown was going on, what was going on in Jumptown, and you've done nothing about it. Why is this? How can we see this decline in crime, as you clearly are pointing to us with this graph, but also see a massive increase of activity at this known location where drug dealing is going on? So that's how it ended up in lore. It was already, elements were already there, but they just kind of slipped it in to an already existing problem, which was the ongoing crime crisis in Stanton. So what they've done recently as well is the Daymar Rally. The Daymar Rally is, I'll go over the brief lore of it. Daymar Rally is, in its own lore, a organization that was started by 5 friends who wanted to explore a site in the deserts of Daymar, which were supposedly made by a hermit who was this artist who lived on Daymar, who stayed away from things, but he carved these giant sculptures out of sand, out of the earth. And there were theories that it was markers for drug smuggling or for stealing parts, because there would be parts that would go missing from the local mining facility. I can't remember which one it is, but the one that you start out in the Daymar Rally. Parts would go missing from there, and they would be hauled out into the desert, and these sites would be used as like places where smugglers could come down and pick them up. This is a fan-made lore, by the way, which is now, I'm going to say canon because of the implications, but so these were being eroded over time. So 5 friends decided to take a tour of these areas, and so they started driving around these areas, and eventually it was this evolved into a race. Who can do it faster? And this they started to get other people involved because other people wanted to come by, and this started to become more of a formal event as a race, but it was never sanctioned by the racing leagues of the UEE, so it's not an official race, it's an underground race. Several professional drivers, again, this is all fan lore, had taken part of the Daymar Rally, and the idea was that if you won, you got this cup, but the first year they held it, the person who got the cup got the name the cup, and the person who won basically got the cup, and they said, "What do you want to call it?" And she said, "I don't give a fuck what you call it. I just never want to do this again. It was so terrible." Because at the same time, there are bandits, outlaws all around the Daymar that attacked these people as they were trying to drive. And this first real official race sealed it as being called the filthiest race in the verse because it was dirty, it was grimy, it was unregulated. People would shoot at each other. There's famously in lore a year where there was no winner. No one crossed the finish line because they either shot each other or they broke down and they had to give up. Rampant corruption was going on with the organization, and eventually it shut down. But in the last couple of years, a new group of people, local to Stanton, decided to try to revitalize this old traditional race, and that's the players who have now tried to restart it. So the lore, which was created by players, was now recently somewhat recognized by CIG. In their latest Galactipedia update, they mentioned specifically that the Daymar Rally, is in lore. They mention it on the entity for Daymar, for the Galactipedia. It says, home of the underground race, the Daymar Rally. So Daymar Rally, you'll notice CIG does player stuff, gets the player stuff that happens in the verse ends up in lore, but they do it through a way that doesn't necessarily discount the stories that people have, but doesn't canonize one specific series of events. It's just that it happens. So in theory, the Jumptown Wars, everything you did at Jumptown is correct, is lore, is canon. But it doesn't have to be. They don't have to go around and talk about the specific events that happened with one person. So that's the interesting thing. Hey, Pickleskin. When we get a rover truck soon. So our citizens very cyberpunk. I would like to see more PI missions in the game. I would too. Nice plot. Thank you, Soki. I like it. My favorite thing about Jumptown was it wasn't really a marked spot. You kind of had to be in the know to find it. Exactly, but it wasn't hard to be in the know. Someone would tell you the other thing. You just found 9 nodes of Hadnite and Daymar. My lucky day. Nice, Escobar. So, as a result, Daymar Rally is the second canonized fan event that has been made. There is some theory that the Cryastro lockdowns are also in lore, but there hasn't been an official nod about the Cryastro lockdowns yet. For those of you who don't know, before Jumptown, before Daymar Rally, we didn't have R&R stations. We had Cryastro. Cryastro was the only station. It was near Olisar, and it was where you could get repaired and refueled. You couldn't even get repaired and refueled at Olisar. You only had to go to the Cryastro stations. And there was a situation. I helped precipitate it. I may have actually given him the idea. Not sorry, but I'm sorry. Which was that they had CIG had basically abandoned Arena Commander. They had refused to build anything. And the idea came around to essentially form an in-game protest about there being no Arena Commander. And what they would do is the PvPers would take over Cryastro. So if anyone tried to refuel or repair, they would be shot down and destroyed. And the idea being and people were like, hey, I'm angry at you. The response would be, then tell CIG to fix Arena Commander. So we could go have our Arena Commander fun and you can have your little Hugbox universe. That was their kind of mentality. And CIG did play it up a little bit. They actually did some reports about it. Disco Lander did some sort of inverse reporting on it, but it was on IC. It's never been official, as far as I understand, but it was definitely something that more than likely inspired the current Ninetales lockdown. The Ninetales station's lockdown are almost certainly inspired by the players' lockdowns of Cryastro, but it's not technically in lore. So there's 2 events that are very much in lore, and a third which is sort of unofficial, but we'll see. Oh, the canonizing Icarus, Project Icarus. We'll see. That one's definitely a little bit more interesting. Well done, Corsair and Atmo Esports. Yeah, they did a really good job. I participated in the Jumptown War. Am I a criminal? Max, I also participated in the Jumptown Wars. Multiple times. My one and only goal in Star Citizen is to do something stupid. So stupid it becomes canon. Hey, off topic, but would you like to think slightly bigger ground vehicles than the Tonk that can be small scale science exploration in beds? I'd love it. I love the idea. Mobile laboratory. I mean, honestly, I think they already have the ability to do something like that. They already have the what is it called? The ballista. Something like the ballista, but replace that whole back area with a hab and some scientific equipment would be great. But, you know. Korea security should get a thing. I mean, yeah, Korea security was fun. That was even older than the lockdowns, than the Cryastro lockdowns. But Ursa could be retrofitted. Yeah, I think building a brand new vehicle would make more sense. Something from we haven't seen a lot from. Other than like the last major Tumbril. Last major Tumbril vehicle that had to be made is the Ranger. All the other Tumbril vehicles are finished, which was the Cyclone, the Nova. That's it. There's been no other vehicles. They only have 3 vehicles. And they're supposed to be the premier ground manufacturer. It would make sense that they built some sort of scientific exploration vehicle. We need a mobile landing pads that would be enable a whole engineering class like mobile bridge layer. I could see something like that. But there was an argument that was made by Space Tomato, which I disagree with to a degree, which is that ground vehicles should be secondary to space. I agree that ground vehicles are not as necessary as space vehicles, but in order to make the investment into this planetary tech that they have worth it, you need to have something that is viable for the ground. Otherwise, it's just scenery for you to fly over. Otherwise, it's just Microsoft Flight Sim, but you can get out of your ship or out of your plane, sort of thing. The Cygnus, the giant spider mech, I like that too, yeah. Big old sand crawlers for land salvaging. It's the reason why I'm an advocate for mechs. I'm an advocate for mechs in the Star Citizen universe. Big mechs, not the power armor, but mechs, because they're cool and they make sense in terms of ground-based movement. So and combat. Basically a ship on legs. It'll be very unrealistic if there aren't large quantities of ground vehicles, especially on Terra. Yeah, there should be lots of ground vehicles to help flesh out the universe. And I think, if anything, the Nova Tonk really exemplified that. It really proved that we do need ground vehicles because Nova Tonks are fun as fuck. They're incredibly fun to drive, incredibly fun to use, and they're fairly effective against your other ground targets. So. Yeah, I think we should probably getting like a hover tank would make sense too. Yeah. Yeah, farming ground vehicles. I think some kind of multi-purpose utility vehicle for ground vehicles makes sense. Something that's a chassis that's designed to do multiple things, but is yeah, it's like a cutlass for the ground. Kind of thing. You think they're going to do the safe area to land, rest by vehicle, like landing in the eye of the storm and driving into the storm? I think so. That's definitely going to be the case. I think that what they're waiting for with weather becoming more of a factor is the visual rendering of weather, which is, if you look at the latest ISC, they've reworked how lightning works. So I think that's going to be coming soon. I think we'll get sandstorms. We'll get major storms in terms of like rainstorms or hurricanes or tornadoes. I think they'll do that because they already have the wind simulation in the game. For those who don't know, there's a wind simulation. The problem is it feels like it's amped up to 11 all the time, but we definitely need more visual indication that there is some sort of storm coming through with like clouds, but they haven't had clouds because they haven't developed cloud tech until recently. So. Toyota utility farm vehicle or improvised military? Exactly. Maybe we'll have a lot of Nova in ground mode driving around. I mean, yeah, like it would make sense that you wouldn't want to use a spaceship for everything. Having a ground transport truck, basically a space 18-wheeler, would make sense because it doesn't cost as much to refuel and refit, and it can still deliver goods on grounds to larger locations compared to ships, which probably eat up hydrogen fuel like no one's business. So it would still make sense to have some of those vehicles, if at the very least to have ground scatter and things for NPCs to do. Nomad plus a mounted gun. Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to build you can build an electric car a lot cheaper than you can build a fucking spaceship. I am too. I am that nerd who gets really excited about roads in my fucking space game. When come out the physical inventory system? 315 is when the start of it. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Thank you, often. Thank you for watching. I finally get my 890 jump out of buyback, but it's without loaners 325A and 85X. Asked at Spectrum, it said contact support, who told me to take it back to the issue council. I began 30-day discussion to get more delays after forking 1K over my 890 jetpack. Oof, oof. All this talk about ground vehicles is reliant on roads and less rocks on planets' moons. Yes, which is they're working on. The road system, I have no doubt that the road system is being worked on the same as the river system. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the original concept was that the river system was built out of the road system that they were developing. Because the road system has been an idea that I've had for a long time. This is an example of how, as long as CIG can continue to get money, they'll continue to develop crazy in-depth ideas, which you wouldn't see in any other type of a game like this. I hope they give players bases strong AA to help push ground assault. Oh yeah, no, like I think the biggest issue right now is AAs are not as effective, and one of the reasons is because they're using a specific type of weapon. It's a Castec arms weapon. No, it's a Hurston Dynamics weapon. I can't remember the name of it though. It's the one that has incredible drop off after like 100 meters. So if you get hit with this weapon at 100 meters, it's the attritions. Yeah, thank you. That there's absolutely no damage that's done to your ship. And as a result, you can pretty much stay 100 meters out and never really have to deal with the shots. If they change those out to Panthers or whatever, I guess they're size 3s, maybe size 4s, larger, repeaters, then that drop off wouldn't matter as much. Or they diversified it so that some of them were missiles or that kind of thing as well. So if I won the lotto and doubled their 300 million collection with another 300 million, do you think the game would ever come out? The game is it's already out. Let me put it this way. I think the mentality that a lot of people lack about Star Citizen is they're like, the game will never come out. The game is out. It's playable. As much as people think that that's not a game, it's out. The question is, will it ever be finished? And the answer is, no, it won't ever be finished because CIG will constantly develop it. If the question is, will it reach a status where they have done all the basics that they wanted to back when the Kickstarter was a thing? The answer is yes. If that's the specific question, because it's so easy to twist this like, oh, CIG's never going to finish the games. Like, they won't. WoW's not done. It's been around forever. EVE's not done. It's been around forever. Elite Dangerous isn't even finished yet. They're still adding new additions. The base game is finished, but they're still adding new things. That's just the way that MMOs work, and especially, games as service works. Sooner? No. If you gave $300 million to them, they wouldn't do it sooner. They would just take that $300 million, they'd bank it and continue to work on it. It would mean they wouldn't have to worry about it as much. Money isn't going to speed them up. Removing the money from their pools won't speed them up faster. All it will do is likely slow them down. CIG will develop at CIG's pace. The only way that you can get them to develop faster is by buying them and firing Chris Roberts. But Chris Roberts ain't going to do that. Look at War Thunder. Yeah, it's out. The Star Citizen's been out, Max. Do I think org mates will be able to summon other org mate ships with limits? I think so. I think they have to set up a permission system, which rolls into the next topic about looting and inventory. So a lot of the game, there's a reason why iCache was one of the pillars of Star Citizen's development, because iCache represents a lot of different things. iCache is no longer called iCache. It's now just called persistent inventory. But persistent inventory is a big thing because it allows for a couple things. One, every single object in the game is tracked, which means that every single object has an identifying marker that they can then pull from memory. They know that it's yours. So there are many Hornets in the universe, but your Hornet is Hornet number 852545322127700 Alpha Bravo. That's your Hornet according to the database. So all of the statuses, everything's tracked like that. To a lesser degree, that's always been tracked. That's always been there. But now everything is, even your coffee cup, like all the details are. That's what the goal of the persistent inventory is. So once you have all of those laid out, then you can start setting up permissions. So for instance, if you have a player who is in your organization, you can give them permission to pull your ship if they're in the right station, because you gave them permissions as part of like a security tree or some sort of like allowances in your ship's systems that says who has access to what. But you can also say nobody gets access but me, and then just SOL. That's the kind of concept behind that. But that requires persistent inventory because the ship has to be tracking which your account has to track which ship is yours and who has what permissions on it. And that's not as an important role as making sure that ship persists in the back end and then is pulled back out. Some people put together CIG transcripts from videos, Spectrum posts, and other crucial sources with a ton of plans for ships sharing, orgs, fleet hangars, and related stuff. There's some really good stuff being envisioned by CIG, but until it happens, nothing is set in stone. Exactly. But a lot of those ideas are required to have persistent inventory. That has to exist before they can even get to that stuff. I think once they have persistent inventory in a good, stable, zero status, either 3.15 or, sometime early next year. I think 3.15 will be that start, and then they'll probably finish the zero status around middle next year. Once they hit that mark, then you'll see permissions coming out. You'll see hacking systems. You'll see all sorts of things like that coming to the foreground because it's one of those required gameplay elements to make the game function. An NPC with your face on it. Oh, speaking of org mates, I hope as NPC spawners. So if you go into your bed with your friends, an NPC could spawn in your place. So you basically lend your character to your friends. Possibly. I think there's some balance issues from that, but possibly. How likely is the scenario where CIG is bought by a company, say Microsoft? Only that isn't super possible. Chris Roberts wouldn't just sell Star Citizen out of nowhere. I've talked about in the past where the one company I think CIG would sell to would be Amazon. And the only reason why that would be if Chris Roberts literally told Bezos to get fucked. If CR walked up and said, I get everything I have right now. You just keep writing me checks and don't ask any fucking questions. That would be the only way Chris Roberts would hand that over. Chris Roberts would go into bankruptcy before he gives up CIG. This is his legacy. Chris Roberts sees this game as his ultimate legacy in creative elements. This is his future for his name. Chris Roberts will die before this game is finished. this game will stop being developed when Chris Roberts dies. You know, or he's completely destitute. That's just how Chris Roberts is. How can they make the game more org friendly? I mean, other than finishing some of the basic elements, they already have a pretty good track record. I mean, most of it is just fixing some of the connectivity issues, increasing the player size, which are all part of the basic kind of idea. But this is Opus, yeah. Oh, we're not doing giveaways. Stop that bot. I remembered to turn that on that I forgot to turn off. This is CR's Oasis. Yeah. When it starts, this movie coming to the theaters as soon as Chris Roberts can get the rights to do it himself. I think they're trying to get away from the OCS language because people were still expecting the silver bullet, even though CIG warned us not to. Yeah, I think so as well. I don't think. Here's the thing. I don't think CIG. I don't think Star Citizen or CIG is even trying to optimize the game in a significant way because they know that so many other things have to be in place, like iCache and persistent inventory. Persistent inventory. Those systems are not designed to increase performance, but by proxy they will, because they're going to remove a lot of entities on the server side and put it into a separate service, which will then cause will remove a lot of the weight from the game servers and allow for better performance to be had by servers, which would then increase the performance of NPCs and everything else around them. We know, Space Coders even talked about this on I think his last Captain's Table. He said there is something in the game. CIG has an encrypted underlying service that it's already in the game that exists. We don't know what it is because it's encrypted, but it just showed up in 3.14. Didn't exist before that, which Space Coder is pretty sure that that's iCache. That's their persistent inventory system, at least version 1, or like an initial test version. That'll likely come online with 3.14, but it's not done yet. It's just there. Maybe it doesn't have all the things hooked up, but it may have some things hooked up. So we know it exists, and that might actually, so we know it's probably going to be done this year, or at least the first rollout will be this year, and that might actually increase performance, but it's not designed for what it's designed to do. So I think you're right that CIG is trying to move away from the OCS language because so many people hoped that SOCS was going to improve the game, and it didn't. Because, I mean, it was by accident that OCS gave huge boosts in performance the way it did. Like, they didn't expect it. It was just something they needed for the game to function, you know, in terms of larger scales, but it also improved player performance. It was like, okay. And people joke about, oh yeah, I get 5 FPS. We literally got 5 FPS in Star Citizen. On a good day, we got 12. Pre-OCS. 3.0 was an unplayable mess in comparison to the modern game. But, hey, Windlord. How can they make... Okay, here's this. Am I the only person seeing the 314 flare item? Either a piece of cake or maybe a calculator. We need pizza, man. We need pie. It's the pie patch. We need pie. Question: do you expect to see more cap ships, fleet battles with ship interior calling? Yes. If Chris, let me pull this up. I'll turn off the music for this one because I think I recorded it with something in the background. But I've had this in my system for a while.
Like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. Here we go. Let me show you this. So this right here. This is what CIG wants. Added a ton of fighters flying around, and this is what CIG wants. So yeah. That's what we need to make pirating more viable. Pirating isn't. So this is something I've seen people kind of support because it's like, oh, well, Cutlass says this and Cutlass says that. And I agree. I like Cutlet and I agree with a lot of his takes. I think Cutlet doesn't fully understand what's going on. And a lot of pirates who want to do gameplay don't fully understand what's going on with CIG. I get their frustrations. I understand it. But I also think that they are prone to exaggeration when it comes to this stuff. Pirating will come. And it will come sooner than later. But I also think a lot of people believe that pirating is going to be PvP, and that's wrong. Like there was a comment about on one of my past captain's tables, someone's come back and looking at it, who said that medical gameplay will be used for a week, and then all the griefers will kill people and people will stop doing it. And first of all, that's not true. See the fuel rats. But the other thing that's important to remember is that most of the medical gameplay missions won't be with players, but NPCs. Most of your combat and almost all of your missions will be NPC based, not player based, which means that if you are a pirate, most of the ships you're going to be pirating are NPCs, not players. Just the reality of the game. It's one of the reasons why I constantly harp I subscribe to and continually to promote the thing that Star Citizen is an open world game with PvP in it, not a PvP open world game. It's not built on PvP. It's an open world that also has PvP in it. PvP is not the game. It is part of the game. But when you say a PvP open world PvP game, people assume that PvP is the basis, but that's not the case. And I think a lot of the reason is because right now there aren't really NPCs in the game. They're kind of canned here and there, but they're not really there. But it's also important to remember that all of the elements we see in the game now are built with the idea that NPCs will be the major source of conflict and trade, income for most players in the near future. So. Pirates don't just kill people, they steal cargo. Yeah, that's the other thing, is it's more valuable in the future to steal cargo than kill people, because if you kill people, your reputation goes down with everybody, including other pirates, because nobody likes a psychopath on their team. And you won't be able to get work for people. You won't be able to sell your goods if you steal goods. Like, one of the concepts that I've seen a lot of pirates say is, I'm going to steal people's ships. No, you won't. You won't do that. Because CIG has said for time immemorial that they want to build a game where the people who are less brutal will get better deals, which makes it incredibly hard to be a pirate. Pirating is hard mode. It's Star Citizen on hard mode. So if you just kill people, you go from being a pirate to being a terrorist or a murderer. And you're not going to be liked by many people because you're hot as fuck when it comes to the law enforcement. So even if initially you'll be doing is killing people and taking their ships, eventually CIG will correct that with gameplay resources so that doing that will not be effective, or it will just make it really difficult for you to live. So when I say that's not going to happen, I don't mean oh, that's physically impossible, or that's not how CIG is going to build it. I mean, CIG has openly said this is the way they want to develop that. You're going to have to realize that. So, hey, Lucario, how you doing, buddy? I think the PvPers forget this about, this is a post-totalitarian world. There will be heavy consequences for wanton killing. Stealing people's ships isn't a thing you'll do. You'll steal their cargo. But if you steal ships, you add a ton more bullshit that you have to deal with. So, imagine getting a pickup call from an NPC and they're next to a disabled caterpillar full of diamonds. Make too many waves, and even pirates hate you for bringing the advocacy and the navy beneath that breathe down everyone's neck. Exactly. That's the system they're trying to build. Now, will CIG do that? I don't know. I don't know if they have that ability. They seem to be pretty confident in it. So we'll see. Paul, I won't kill people and take their ships. I will steal the ship while forcing the pilot to run out the airlock stranded in the middle of space. That sounds like killing the pilot and taking the ship with extra steps there, Commissar. There's a fun thing that hackers could do in game, overriding permissions on ships and deleting ownership records. For sure. That would be an interesting aspect to hacking, which would be an interesting kind of skill base. Or, the skill base and kind of the right technical aptitude or like technical skills. Because I feel like everything in Star Citizen is going to be tool-based rather than purely skill-based. So hacking, as long as you have the right tools and the right tech, well, you should be able to do it, but it's going to also take up slots that you could be using for weapons or gear or other things like that. So going to a player or knowing somebody who has those tools ready, who could wipe the system and get you the registry wiped and get you the ship, could make a lot of sense. But again, we're talking about hard mode. And I think that's the key, is that a lot of people don't get, is that like piracy is going to be a lot like exploration. It's going to be redundant. You're going to be attacking a lot of NPCs. If you attack a player, it will be very rarely in a very specific location, a very specific thing, and being brutal will be worthless. Killing people isn't the point. But on the other side, I also think that so many traders say, oh, I'm going to be pirated. I just rather nuke myself and fuck off with the pirate. It's too easy. It should also be punished. Because if your initial, if right now you were a freighter captain and you started getting attacked by Somalian pirates, and your initial idea is to activate a bomb inside the ship to destroy you and everything on board, you're not going to be seen as a hero by anybody. Especially if you survive that, you'll be sued to oblivion. You'll be dead broke and probably wish you had died in that explosion. And CIG wants to make that. It makes this game not realistic, but like as filled with consequences as possible. Every decision needs to have matter. It needs to have weight. And blowing your ship up because you don't want to give in to pirates is kind of lazy and not good gameplay. So making it require extra effort or give you massive penalties. So it goes on both ways. But I think I've more often seen people on the pirate side who want to say like, yeah, I'm going to kill everybody and take all their shit. It's like, you can, but that's going to cause problems for you. And I don't think you realize that. I love pirating, be it PvP or PvP, hard not to. Yeah, it's fun. Insurance fraud for everything? Oh, yeah. Or proper salvage. Find wrecked ship, repair to a flyable, and add to a fleet or sell. Yeah, something like that would be interesting. But that requires them to change a lot of aspects. And I think, they've even said, repair, for salvage, you need repair. The salvage is the flip side of repair. But they're the same mechanics. And I don't know if that's something that CIG is CIG-centric. They actually mentioned it before. Or if it's something that CIG has picked up from the community, because it's something that the community has been saying forever. Salvage is the flip side of repair. Repair, fueling, and arming. Repairing, refueling, and rearming are all just adding things to a ship. Salvage is just removing those things from the ship, but they're all the same systems. Even refueling, salvage, you probably want to siphon the fuel out of a wreck if it has active fuel, so you can use it or sell it. This is how I became part of the lore. He called himself Sinner Savior. He killed a lot of people, bad people, but people all the same. Mass murdering. The military have a saying: you cannot gain control, self-destruct, blow it up. Don't let the equipment, vehicles, stuff go into enemy hands. I get that, but at the same time, it's lazy gameplay. just pushing a button and saying, fuck you, isn't interesting gameplay. Having a sequence that you have to set up, requiring things like your reactor to be active, all sorts of things are a lot more fun. And I think the better way of going about it is if pirates are good, they'll basically disable to the ship to the point of saying, hey, you're fucked. We just want your cargo. You give us your cargo, we'll let you go. We'll fly away and let you go. And a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but pirates, you can't trust a pirate. It's like, then you'll die either way. Like, you'll be at the mercy of them anyways. So you either choose to trust them or you just wait it out and they'll do it anyways. It's either expediting your trip back to Alisar or you're or delaying it a little bit. Yeah. Wasn't there a lore about NPC pirates working on the UEE to take out a serial killer? Not really working together, but yeah. I mentioned earlier Booty Call, the Jester's radio podcast or Spectrum broadcast that he does. There's actually a section, and it's important. A lot of those lore pieces are important because they're often written with the context of trying to explain a gameplay aspect in game. So like there's some interviews with SIAC Dooley about the state of crime in Stanton, about the aftermath of Xenothreat. All of those were written to explain the CDF presence in Stanton, including the Call to Arms mission and the Xenothreat missions. Those were written with the lore perspective on that. There was a edition of Booty Call, which specifically talks about a pirate who was fucking up his roots, how he's being super like aggressive and super killy. He's just been killing people. And so now all of the runs that he's trying to take out, all of the transport ships he's trying to take out are running with extra security because there's this psychopath on the loose. And so the entire broadcast is him explaining this and then ending it with, if I found out who the fuck you are, the cops won't find you. I'm going to fucking murder you because you almost got me killed multiple times because of this dumb shit you've been pulling. So yeah, which is a way of explaining. It came out shortly after CIG talked about how they wanted to kind of balance pirating, which was pirating is a balance between getting the goods you need to succeed, but not going into territory where you are basically just murdering for fun. Because once you reach that point, you're going to see a reaction from the NPCs in a way that is negative to you, not just from the law enforcement side of things, but also from other pirates who will be pissed that you are making life harder for them. Pirate protection fees are a good way to go. Simple protection extortion, if it's not too expensive, will be worth it, as opposed to losing your whole shipment. Exactly. Good smugglers and good truckers will know who operates in what areas and will pay them ahead of time for players. And for NPCs, I'm sure NPCs will pull you out of Quantum or block you for a moment, and they'll immediately contact you and say, pay us a fee and you can go. Or drop a little bit of that cargo and we'll let you go. And it's up to you how you deal with that. Yeah, see, I agree with that. I really hope you spend hours in hospital if you self-destruct. I think a respawn sickness, a convalescence period, is a great way of punishing players who are bad. And not punish, consequences for being bad. It's the flip side of criminal behavior. I still think that prisons should be longer than convalescence periods, but I do think that convalescence periods need to be something as a consequence for your actions as a player. You nuke yourself into oblivion, congratulations. Enjoy that convalescence time with your new clone. Not necessarily trapped in a hospital, but you can't leave. Your stamina sucks. You're constantly stopping and vomiting because you're brand new in a brand new body you're not used to yet. You have to eat food constantly. Your food and health meter, your water meter are just dropping so quickly because you are still like getting used to everything. The problem about nuke and ejecting is that all that's going to do is get pirates to shoot you. They're just going to kill you, and you'll still end up in the same place. Would you rather see Pyro or Theaters of War first? I don't really care. The only way I'd like to see Pyro is if we have... All right, let me put it this way. I don't think other systems are good right now. I don't think if they released Pyro tomorrow that it would be a good move. Unless they have server meshing. So if the question is, would I rather see server meshing or Theaters of War first? Server meshing, obviously. Theaters of War just isn't that important in comparison. But if it's just, do I want another system of Theaters of War? I'd rather have Theaters of War than just an arbitrary system without the underlying tech that makes it more interesting. So, question: if an adventurous player decided to side with the Ninetales in an upcoming event, what are some of the not too expected ramifications for those players might experience in the game as effects of their reputation now and down the road? For now, there is not really a huge deal because the only way you can get the Ninetales mission is if you're already wanted, but it will definitely increase your wanted level. You'll probably go from a 1-star if you have, or from one CS1 to CS5 very quickly, which will make you very tempted for bounty hunters. But on top of that, in the near future, it'll drive, because I'm not a fan of the CS system. I think the CS system is dumb, and I think you need to replace the CS system with the reputation system. So instead of having crime stat, you have reputations, where negative reputations with law enforcement, like Crusader Security or the Advocacy, means that you have a criminal status, and you can look up your criminal status in your logs or somewhere else like that. But in long term, yeah, I think having those negative consequences are kind of already in the game, but will continue to be negative consequences, which are you won't be able to land at landing zones. You won't be able to go to Area 18 or any of the stations without being shot at because you're a criminal, because you have negative reputations. So a heat stat, not really. I don't like that gamification. I'd rather players be forced to pay attention to what the reputation is in a system. There is already a reputation manager, which you can use as a means of figuring out your heat stat. But the idea of having a CS meter, like, GTA style, it made sense before we had reputation. Now it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'd much rather them switch over to reputation being the basis of that. And I hope they are going to do that. Because again, I'd like a situation where you're wanted by Crusader Security, but you're not wanted by ArcCorp, by Area 18. So you hang out with a friend at, the local bar at Area 18. I can't remember the name of it. The G-Lock bar. And in walk a couple of bounty hunters and you go, oh shit, I'm wanted in this system. I forgot. And you have to fight your way out. Is the UI or the gameplay the problem? Both. The gameplay isn't necessarily a bad thing that you have a wanted level, but I'd rather it be micro wanted level and deal with reputation rather than necessarily just an arbitrary system. They already kind of have that in place. It's having it more be a reputation system because, like, for instance, if I didn't pay my parking ticket in ArcCorp, it doesn't make any fucking sense for Crusader Security to give a shit about my unpaid parking ticket. But if I committed murder in ArcCorp, yeah, the Advocacy wants to talk with me. So every system will have a bounty for me or a warrant for my arrest, sort of thing. That makes sense. But the current implementation of it doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh, I trespassed in Aberdeen at the at the prison. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Like, why should Microtech give a shit? But the on top of that, the UI, the giant flashing UI, is just distracting and stupid. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I much prefer players have to be forced to be a little more conscious about their systems. Oh yeah, there should definitely be bribes. There should be lots of different things. But I think with the current system, the way it is now, is in a good place to remove the CS system. Crusader hates you. Any of the bounty hunt licensed high rep Crusader will get all alerted for you. Exactly. Yeah. Question: isn't there info on getting in-system jump points? No, there was no official info. It was a pulled from the files by the leaks crew, and the leaks crew isn't always 100% correct. And the reasons I've talked with the leaks crew about this, and their theory was that the jump points has something to do with Jumptown. And while I don't think that's the case, if it was the case, CIG is stupid, fundamentally misunderstands what Jumptown was good, and I would call them out all day on terrible game design and break them over the coals for shitty game design. On top of that, jump points and intersystem jump points don't make a lot of sense because, let me paint it to you this way. How do we travel in Star Citizen? Quantum drive. Okay, so we use quantum drive to travel from place to place. So, and then how do we get from system to system? We use jump points. Okay, so between systems is jump points. Between planet to planet is quantum drive. Oh, but now we have intersystem jump points. What? So if I'm a player and I see a jump point, I can go, oh, cool, this is a different system I'm going to. And then find out it's just on the other side of the same system? That's kind of cheap. You know, not everyone pays 100% attention to what CIG does. So if you're a brand new player, that's confusing because it doesn't fit into the category of what should be. Even if it's just for testing, it's stupid because the only reason to have a jump point isn't to test if the jump point works, because it's just a loading screen, really. Not really, but I mean, like, in reality, it's just a way so you can stream out information from one system and stream in another system without, seamlessly, without having huge hitches and load in, pop out stuff. But it adds a little bit more of a difficulty to getting around because you have to, use these systems. Having an intersystem jump point doesn't test anything. It just tests the particle effects, which don't really matter compared to the actual honest-to-God jump system, which is supposed to be working between systems. Will the air and halo gates be like mini jump points? No, they're like stations. They're just basically a place where you can go through the massive scale of air and halo asteroid belt without having to try to navigate those. Question: do you anticipate Reputation having more lasting effects than the current rep system, like being banned from major cities or stations? Yes. Then rather than hacking one's crime site away, just acquire false identity, alias, or something alternative way to deal with Reputation? Yes, I think at least initially hacking your system, hacking your crime stat down, or hacking your reputation to a neutral state would make sense as a gameplay element. But I do think having multiple ways of reducing your increasing your reputation with groups that you don't necessarily have good ties with makes a lot of sense as well. Bribes, doing jobs for them, those sorts of things. Doing ancillary things that help them out as well, that kind of stuff. So the air and halo gates they're like an entire width of the asteroid fields. If so that's huge. Yeah, they're massive. They're basically the stations we have now, but with giant walls which corral and protect and open up lanes in the air and halo belt. And if anyone who's jumped to the air and halo belt knows, it's goddamn massive. So it allows for quicker travel through the air and halo locations. So what if those intersystem jump poles are just part of a scaling of the size of the system to allow quicker travel within the system? I disagree. I don't like that idea. Star Citizen is all about scale, and if they add fast travel or ways of kind of speeding up travel, then using jump points is stupid. They should come up with a new system. There's lots of good ideas out there, but adding jump points for intersystem travel is just going to be confusing for players. It's going to create weird lore loopholes and is lazy. Look at the X series is a good example. The X series has superhighways where you can travel between different locations by hopping onto a highway, which essentially speeds up your travel. There have been multiple ways that you could do stuff like that. Even in Freelancer, they did that. So it's something that CIG, that Chris Roberts himself has done before. So I honestly can't play the game until they fix the dust and the leaves, mainly the leaves. What? What do you mean? That means that air and Halo gates are at least 1 million kilometers in length. Yes. Yes, they're huge. I'm picturing the air and Halo lanes being like those lanes from with lights for capital ships and space stations. Yes, that's something like that. But they're definitely going to have. They even showed off these walls that kind of protect both of them. The new dust animations and leaves. What was on ICC today? You don't like those? They're fine. Those are work in progress anyways, if that's the reason why you can't play. I don't, what if the jump point test during travel, they completely streamed Stanton out and then back in once the player got close to the end of the test jump? It could just be a proper test of the system. I mean, I don't doubt that there's a jump point that jumps between two points. I do not doubt that exists in the builds because I have no doubt that they're testing it out. But to add that into the game just confuses things. And the argument that they made for instance, Levski and Delamar being removed from the Stanton system was that it wasn't supposed to be in the Stanton system. Adding jump points, intersystem jump points that are just tests for jump point tech is the laziest checkmark I've ever seen in a game developer do. Or not saying not the laziest, but laziest thing I've ever seen CIG do. Which is we have jump points in, check that off. Like, no, fuck you. That's not. You can't just do one thing and then do another and expect us to just swallow it, you know? But yeah, I mean, people complain about travel times all the time. If CIG wanted to speed up travel times, they could increase quantum travel time or increase the speed of quantum travel, or they could come up with another system to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it gets muddled in terms of how the games work if you're dealing with the difference between jump points and quantum travel, and how jump points are sometimes intersystem travel, sometimes not. So, bitter pills. I don't know what you're talking about. Though dust looks better in game? I'm confused. I'm confused as to why you're not going to play the game until dust comes in. Like, are you saying the dust right now in game, in 3.14, is bad? Or are you saying that the dust they showed off in ISC is bad? I want faster quantum. I don't. I think there is value in having distance travel, and I think the argument that travel should be shorter is a bad argument. I think the argument should be there should be more shit to do in a planetary system, not faster travel. Yeah, there should be more to do with during quantum, but I also think that quantum itself is a different. Quantum and jump points are gameplay amongst themselves, and that time is just the thing. Euro Truck Simulator. The Truck Simulator games are good examples of that. Looking at it from a dev perspective, a jump point inside a system would null out the Q drive. There would be no point for them to keep updating that now. Exactly. People wouldn't use quantum drives, or they would barely ever use it if you had intersystem jump points. It mixes the gameplay. Like, if they wanted to do fast travel, they could do faster travel. There was a great pitch that I can't remember who a long time ago had, where you would have quantum entanglement points, which are essentially points or like buoys that would be set from one point to another, and your quantum drive could lock onto that buoy. And because it's considered like a safe lane to travel in, you would be able to override the safeties on your quantum, and you could travel faster than typical quantum speeds because it creates kind of like this point to point. You could easily loop that in as a way of dealing with speeds. And it also allows for direct point-to-point travel. So if you're trying to be a pirate, for instance, you know exactly where those locations are going to be in terms of travel. So it allows you to go faster, but you're more conspicuous when you travel because you're going faster. And it doesn't allow you to go off the beaten path to other locations that don't necessarily have those beacons. So it adds a little bit of infrastructure without having to build much. You just have to build a beacon, which would be just a model. And you could just say, you go faster from these points. It's a small fix that works well in the lore, but also would work well in terms of gameplay. I want to set my own quantum point. I do too. I feel like the scale is insane considering the Stanton is only 5 AU, and I believe the system in lore that's 200 AU, 300 AU. It's the black hole TAMSA. The TAMSA system is 304 AU. There are some points that are 194 AU. I think that was Killian. But for perspective, there's only one ship that's ever made it to the Orc cloud of Killian, which is a Carrack. It's the only one that's ever been out there. The scales are massive, but you got to remember that not all of those systems are designed to be traveled from one end to the other. Parking violation. I'm fundamentally opposed to intersystem jump points. Absolutely fundamentally opposed, especially considering CIG's own stance that the reason why they removed Levski and Daymar was because it wasn't supposed to be in the Stanton system. If it's supposed to be in-game as an in-game asset from now on, it's dumb. It's stupid for many reasons. And if it's for testing, it even goes against their own creed they've said before. So I'm against it. There's nothing that anyone can convince me otherwise. It's dumb. It's only a model, yeah. And this is the thing, it's a leak, so it could be nothing. It could have just been a testing thing they did. So. Someone loved Daymar. I did like Daymar, but it's more of a, why are we removing something because of lore reasons and then adding something in for testing that breaks the lore? It's an odd contradiction, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Jump point, no point. Can we find creatures living in a jump point? In the jump point, like the wormhole aliens, the prophets from Star Trek. I would like to see more space lanes. It would lead more interesting pirate versus security points of interest. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if there are ways you can do that, which doesn't remove jump point. Because the other thing about having a jump point from like say Hurston to Microtech is that it removes gameplay. Now there's no way that someone going from Hurston to Microtech would get interdicted, would have to stop for gas or anything. They just could pop to the other side of the fucking map with no consequences. It's stupid. It shortcuts the interesting experience. So 3.14 is just one patch closer to getting the Redeemer. Azoth. Yeah, well, Azoth in New World actually, A, makes sense in lore, but B, has a consequence because you have to spend Azoth to fast travel from place to place. And you only have a maximum of 1,000 Azoth. And sometimes traveling from one point to another can cost up to 200 Azoth to travel. There's a consequence to it. It's not just, I can fast travel. 315 is very exciting, yes. You could have to calculate the correct distance en route to crash into a moon or planet. Yeah. Saddle-ridden aliens, discuss. If I can, as long as I can get a sword, yes. As long as I can ride my battle mount into war, with flailing around a sword in the 30th century, yes. 4.0 is more exciting. 4.0 is more exciting only if it actually has the ability to scale up the number of players per server. Server meshing. 4.0 is exciting if the mechanics are there and the tech is there for what we need it to be. Any lore about those? There's no lore about any swords other than ceremonial swords. We do know that the Vandul use a lot of blades. They do use blades. They like close quarters combat. The Vandul do. So, and they prefer it over anything else. We also know that Javaran use blades. We also know that the Xi'an have like close quarters combat weapons. So. Drive me closer. I want to hit it with my sword. I just want to be able to turn out of the Nova Tonk at the top and wheel the knife around and scream that from the top of my lungs. Any news on homesteads? Yes, homesteads are 317 right now, maybe a little bit later, but they're not player homesteads. They are NPC homesteads. Yes, the prophets are different space whales swimming in the interstellar space, like the worm and the Q worm. Drive by with hover bikes and pukes. Yeah. The pikes. Yes. Let's introduce Vandul to the 40k style chain swords. I've always said that in the Star Citizen universe, a ballistic boarding shield and a boarding axe would make a fuck lot of sense. You're fighting in small corridors, and anyone who kind of knows how conflict works, bringing a knife to a gunfight doesn't sound as stupid as it might sound, because often, unless you have a gun ready, someone who is attacking you with a bladed weapon or a melee weapon can close the distance on you before you can pull and fire a weapon. Even in Star Citizen, that's the case. Because it takes the fractions of the second it takes for you to pull out a weapon, aim it, and shoot it. You could cover that distance with a melee weapon and stab someone to death. Right? So in the Star Citizen universe, where you have pressurized hulls, shooting weapons inside pressurized holes probably isn't the best idea, A. And B, because of the tight quarters, you can ambush people. And if you had something like a ballistic shield to help protect you against initial rounds, you could get up to somebody, tank a couple of bullets, stab them or hit them with an axe so that they just don't move and move on. Because I don't have to reload an axe. So I can just take your entire ship with a shield and an axe. Because you can't kill me. Cover jousting, yes. What is the gun to knife distance? There's a person with a gun should be X distance for someone with a knife. The knife wielder will have an advantage. It's 50 yards, I want to say. Or 25, it's like 25 feet. The distance is about 25 feet. Or is it 10 feet? Bayonets, another good example. I'd love to see bayonets in Star Citizen. I will give you an untrained person with a gun. I have a pretty fast draw, and I will fire from my hip. But the question is, can you hit? Firing from the hip is not accurate. So. Yeah, there's police training on it. There's training for police forces about how to safely handle people with bladed weapons, with things like knives, because that's the reason why whenever you see a police officer, someone has a knife, the more likely, if someone has a knife at all, even just if it's visible on them, a police officer is more willing to shoot them because they know that the distance that they can cover and kill them is huge. So they're not going to take that risk because that's where they get trained. So like that's the thing. Like it's a thing that I think even in the military they teach you about, like in hand-to-hand combat there's a distance upon which you're just not going to be as effective with a ranged weapon. Not to say anything about crowded spaces, yeah. Do I think they will add dismemberment? No, I don't think they're going to go that far. They're trying to go for. They said that they're shooting for if they were to send this to the ESRB, they're shooting for a teen rating. But if something they want to add would push it over into a mature rating or an AR rating, they wouldn't stop it. But they're shooting for about a teen rating, and dismemberment would be a little much. Mueller drill, 21 feet for distance law enforcement trains for. Yeah. Need electric guns and stun guns in Star Citizen? They're going to come. It's something they're going to make. I believe that that being a justification of Blades and Traveler RPG. Yeah. 21 feet. I had that drilled in my head when I was with the USAF security forces. Yeah. Yeah. They train routinely about this. It's basically an M rating already with chat in game. ESRB does not cover online experiences. That's the rule. Distortion shotgun. Yeah, we already have the electric weapons. Those are supposed to be able to be scaled down to more stun rather than killy stun. So I think they're planning for something like surgery also for losing limbs for prosthetics, though, aren't they? We don't know quite yet. I would theorize that's the case, but we don't know quite yet. They tell you something 1,000 times, it doesn't matter. If they tell you something like 5,000 times, it's because it matters. Yeah. I hope organ harvesting is possible. I mean, in theory, with medical and inventory coming in at the same time and looting, possibly. We do need a flamethrower. Especially with CIG being obsessed with fires and ships, we need a flamethrower. Good old-fashioned flamer. "21 feet was established for more liability than protection, to be honest. It's a case law. Okay. I mean, I have seen a couple of videos, training videos, where they actually demonstrate like someone with a knife and someone with a gun and how quickly someone with a knife can approach, just like the distance it takes. Like someone running at you with a knife can close that distance pretty quickly, and it's very hard for you to be able to unholster a weapon and shoot accurately at that range. Garrus from Emmy interdicts the guy who mentioned Harvest. Hey, thank you so much for that $20 there, Red. Goal! I can't do that properly, but speculation on this sitcom. I don't know quite yet. So I'm going to do something very quickly, guys. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to use the restroom, and I'm going to start doing something which I normally don't do. But this is something I'm going to start doing more often because if I recall correctly, Twitch has a rule where if you run ads on a regular basis in the middle of your stream, then they won't run as many ads at the beginning or run them at all in the beginning. So if you're okay with it, I'm going to use the restroom and I'll run one ad and I'll be right back. Okay. I don't want to make any money on this. It's more that I want to do it so that people who are coming in have a better experiences because I gotta use the restroom. So got to use the restroom. There's a time, grab something to drink, that kind of thing. You on YouTube, you won't even see this, but you'll see an ad on the rewatch. Not on now though. I'll be right back. Be right back. All right, I'm back. It was a little bit longer than a minute, I think, but... Of course I left my mic on. I intentionally left my mic on. Cheers, stream, I'm back. Twitch has no power here. Mwah. Didn't get an ad? I did. I definitely ran an ad. If you're subscribed, I don't think you have to have. You don't get an ad. I definitely pulled the run for 1 minute ad break. So, and Luddite YouTube user, I don't even get the ad. Yeah, you'll get it in the after. if people are watching after the fact, they'll get it. So, blocks ads. That's good. All right. Is this an ad for a chair and a microphone? I'm surprised no one got to see it. You saw ads? Okay. So some people saw it, some people didn't. Tigarius Khan, thanks for that 8 months with Twitch Prime. Which brand of toilet paper do you have in the house? Whatever the HEB brand is, the standard HEB brand. I use the soft one. No 2-ply for me, motherfuckers. I ain't running no 2-ply. No 2-ply in this house. We go higher. The good stuff. I actually, literally, after using 1-ply for like the majority of my adult life, once I got a house, I told Cam, like, I'm never buying 1-ply toilet paper again. Yes, I've honestly thought about getting a bidet just because of all of the issues with the latest with the pandemic and everything, bringing to the fact that it's like, hey, maybe I should get a bidet anyways. I'm sad that Twitch stopped with the whole ads for bits program. Rip freeable bits, yeah. So no speculations. Let me. There was a question on by you. Speculations on CitizenCon. Okay. Okay. So here's my speculation on CitizenCon. But before I get to that, usable vending machines when? Soon. They've actually it's been on the roadmap, but they've been working on it for off and on for a while. So 2-ply would be a great name for a rapper. So here's my speculation on CitizenCon. CitizenCon, I think, will be a event that is mostly going to be panels, obviously, but I think the actual main event will be you wake up in Pyro on Ruin Station. You get a job from a new mission giver in Pyro that they'll bring up, or you'll just get a job from somebody in Pyro. Then you'll hop back into a Carrack or into whatever ship is available, maybe the Redeemer, or let me look at the ships that are coming out in nope, not that. Look at the roadmap. Jake, I need you. You have encyclopedic knowledge of this. I do not. It's literally your job. It's an entire forest in every role, and my butt feels good about it. All right, let's look at ships. So ships and vehicles, the Scorpius and the Hull A. Okay, ships and vehicles, Hull C, and shield emitters. So almost assuredly a Redeemer. You'll hop into a Redeemer for CitizenCon or a Hull series, one of the two, at Ruin Station. And then you'll fly from Ruin Station to go do a mission, and then you'll end up going through another jump point and ending up in Nyx and going to Levski. I think there'll be some combat, there'll be some exploration, they'll do a little bit of salvaging, they'll do a little bit of, medical gameplay. They'll have all sorts of different, all the gameplay that are coming in 3.15 and what they're planning on doing for the next year, which will include refuel, repair, salvage, all that sorts of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if you are in a Redeemer and you're escorting a hull, which is the part of the thing, and if the hull is run by an NPC or whatever, they'll build something like that out. But the fact that they're prioritizing Ruin Station to be finished before the end of the year tells me that Ruin Station is 100% in CitizenCon video, even though it won't be available for in game. Thank you for that $20 there, Tail. Enjoy your work when the sound is good. Ouch. Ouch. So the sound issue, I think, is mostly because I do this, and then my voice gets really quiet, and so people don't hear it. But I'm really close to the mic. Everyone can hear it. I just got to remember to lock down and speak into the microphone, because I kind of do this, and especially when I'm tired or I'm, stressed or other things. So I just got to remember to do that. You'll hop in a Redeemer and then explode and being on fire. Exactly, because I hate Redeemers. But I think almost for assuredly that Redeemers will be part of that. Maybe they're waiting on Pyro physicalized QT before making any more changes to speeds, etc. That's likely the case too. If you get a bidet, make sure you live in an area that doesn't start water rationing. That's true. I mean, we don't really have a problem here yet. I can't even find Ruin Station on the progress tracker. It's listed on somewhere else. It was mentioned in it may not even be on the progress tracker. No, it's on the progress tracker. Look under the deliverables. Look up Ruin. Okay, so look up Pyro. Pyro space stations. And Pyro system, planet, and mission setup. Gildank Dark Fantasy. Gildark Fantasy, thank you so much for that 8 months of support. I kind of want to see you, Borden's in talk lore. He's invited me on a cast before in his podcast, but he's not gotten back to me yet. Bord, if you're watching, I'd love to come on it sometime again. Let me know. But I know Bord. He gets busy. He gets other things. I do the same thing. So it's not personal. I know that kind of thing happens. I'm just glad that Zin does lore. So many people don't do lore. And I'm just like, whenever people, like, I follow others creators who do lore in Star Citizen who don't have enough views. Let me look it up. Let me look up the guy. Where's my phone? It's over there. One second. So I have a personal YouTube. That's separate from the Astropub account. That's mostly for me kind of watching things like battle reports and those sorts of things. And I follow some Star Citizen creators there. Let me look up the name. He's been doing a bunch of stories about the various alien races in Star Citizen. Where are you? James Johnson is his name. On YouTube. Let me put his link into the chats. Y'all should be subscribed to James Johnson. It is a system called no. There you go. Boom. And boom. Yeah, I always love those kind of things. Tabletop Titans, am I right? I do watch some Tabletop Titans. I do watch mostly Tabletop Tactics and MWG and those guys as well. You're so very generous and charming, cool people with us. Thanks. That's kind of what I want to share. I don't know Zin very well, but I know Bord very well. Bord's an awesome dude. He's great. Honestly, I can't wait to see Salvage. I'm excited since they're finishing Drake Salvager. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Do you think the extinguisher would be good commodity to trade in the future? The fire extinguisher? Yes, I think they'd work pretty well. I'm hoping our spawn location will determine some of our skill set. I mean, there's not going to be any skills in the game, but it'll definitely help determine your reputation. Yeah, fire extinguisher is best weapon. I haven't finished Attack on Titans, but it'd be hooked. I can't watch the last season. Oh no, Tabletop Titans is a 40K battle report series. I watch battle reports from 40K, which is probably the most dry content you can. In lore is more interesting. The 40K lore channels where they just kind of talk about and read the lore is a lot more engaging than battle reports are. But it's the kind of thing where you have to really like the personalities or the game, or really understand the game to understand what's been going on. It's kind of like if you like watching, it's like watching really dry Dungeons and Dragons broadcasted games. Like even the most entertaining ones who do it, you have to kind of know about the lore or know about the game in some way, shape, or form to kind of get some of the points. But yeah, Luden's good. Luden's great. But I like it. I mean, especially putting them on while I'm taking a walk or painting, because they're usually like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. So it's the nice long content. You just watch me for the lore, bro. You don't watch me for my tactical skills, that's for sure, Westbrook. I know that. Check out Guerrilla Miniatures. I mean, no, I don't mind the longness of it. Especially 40K in 40 minutes is pretty good. It's more like it's dry because there's a lot of inter-game mechanics which are not entertaining to watch. It would be like watching somebody do a Star Citizen stream where all they did is build loadouts. That's essentially what it's like, and then for half of the stream, and then the other half of the stream, or maybe like 20 minutes of a 4-hour stream is actual like combat and everything else. Everything else is just prep. Like, some people like that shit. They really do. But it's hard to get into it unless you understand what you're doing. I'm chatting on YouTube because I can't handle the 160p of P on my very low band. Well, I'm glad YouTube's a little bit better then. Too bad GW is killing anything art-related currently. Yeah, I've heard. We talked about that at the beginning of the stream, how it's an absolute stupid move. I know CIG will never do something like that. I'm actually afraid of CIG doing something like that, but it's painful at times. It's painful, I can say that. Why do I hate the Redeemer? Because it's ugly, and I don't think it deserved to win its competition that it was in. There are other ships that were more deserving of the title of being added into the game. There's like it almost literally is the only ship that I disliked in the entire competition. Everyone else was good. I was okay with everyone else of those. But that was the one ship that I was just like, I don't like it at all. I don't understand what's the point in small size cannons like 1 to 3. They're designed for anti-capital or anti-fighter ship combat. They fire pretty quickly, but they do a lot of damage at long range. That's the idea, I think. We need a Deemer in the dumpster fire emote, Paul. We do. I need to revamp all my emotes. I need to do that. Because I also need to add animated emotes and a bunch of the tier emotes and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. The Redeemer is not going to be a bad ship in any way, shape, or form. I just hate the aesthetic. I hate that it's seen as an I win ship by much of the community, and I think that it didn't deserve to win over other ships which were better. Fundamentally better. Have I seen Gundam Hathaway? Not yet. I've heard it's good, but I'm still not catching up on all my anime. And I've been a long-term fan of Gundam, but I'm also what I hate about the Gundam universe is like everything but the UC universe gets absolutely dunked on. the UC universe, which is the original Gundam universe, is like everyone wants to watch it because it's the original and they like it. But then you have something like Iron-Blooded Orphans, which was a fantastic series, but got no love. It's like, this is a great introduction to Gundam, but nobody cares about it. It's like, oh, God damn it, kind of thing. How do you prepare yourself to survive in the next few months with people talking about their Redeemer every day and every time? I plan on taking the absolute piss out of the Redeemer as long as I can for, while it's coming out. Hey, Warrior, doing good. How are you? The other ones with the Brutus, the other ships that were in the next great starship was the Brutus, the Scimitar, which is the Scimitar, but the guy called it Scimitar, so I'll go by that. The Boomslang, I'm forgetting on the other ones. I think those are the top 4. Hey, Big Murder Face, how you doing, buddy? I like Iron Blood Orphans, though my personal favorite is Gundam Thunderbolt, Gundams with Jazz. I haven't seen that one. I mean, I think there's a lot of hype for Hathaway because it's in the UC verse. But, like, I feel like Iron-Blooded Orphans was like, if you were a Gundam fan, you liked it. And it was a nice, interesting take, but it just didn't catch on with a lot of people. Iron-Blooded Orphans is a lesson in aggression. While they were defenders, they were unbeatable. Once they sought to control their fate was sealed. Yeah. Thunderbolt is so good. Okay. Question. Pontificate on the rumored Anvil longbow carrier capital ship. Okay, yeah, there it is. The Brutus, the Redeemer, the AX-14, Scimitar, the Phoenix, the Silverback, the Guardian. And that's it. So Zach, here's the reality. I think everyone who's saying that the Drake capital ship is a carrier ship is it doesn't understand what the ships that that Anvil makes are. I don't think that Anvil will create a carrier. A. B. I don't think that CIG would release a carrier in the size that they're going to be building that would rival the Idris, because it would completely remove one of the ships they've spent fuck tons of time building that they don't just want to nerf essentially into the ground. So here's what the Anvil capital ship will be, whether it's called the Longbow or whatever. Because the Longbow is a bad name for a lot of reasons, and if you remember back to what the Perseus was originally supposed to be called, according to the leaks, which was Odin, it wasn't named that. So don't harp on the names because, like, oh, longbow and arrow, so they must go together. It's like that can change or could be wrong. So we don't know. But based off of lore, and based off of what CIG needs to do in terms of mechanically, there are not many small ships that punch like crazy above their weight class. I know that's a meme, but most of the big ships punch down, not up. The Hammerhead punches fighters, doesn't punch capital ships or even large ships. The Perseus punches large ships, not capital ships. It's a large ship itself that punches like across its class, but doesn't really punch up. The only ship that does decent anti-capital ship combat is the Idris. The Idris is huge. And the only other one that would do decent damage against a capital ship would be the Nautilus. But the Nautilus the Polaris. But the Polaris is a missile boat. It's not a gunship. So you need something that has guns, that can punch larger ships that is smaller. That fits right into what Anvil does. They build ships with lots of DACA, lots of armor, and not a lot of speed. They build flying gun platforms is what they do. So my theory on an Anvil capital ship, if they are making one, would be something that has a rail gun. Something that is the size of an Idris, that is just designed, that is built around like a spinal mounted railgun, and that's it. And then maybe some small gun batteries for support. But it's designed to fly into combat, just point blank an Idris with its railgun to disable it, and survive long enough. It's designed to be small, easily deployable, but can punch above its weight. It's an artillery ship, something that is weak against direct fire, or not really designed to do a lot of fire, and only has one major gun, but can do a ton of damage if it hits. So that's what it is. The Ares is also not a capital ship killer. It uses size 7s, which are called the subcap slayer size. So I think there's possibly short voiced actors for the PU. Like if an AI security asks multiple questions, what is the ship hauling? Is your character says something like medical supplies, then they can equip quantum. I don't think they'll be short. I think they'll definitely do stuff like that, but I don't think your player character will say anything. It'll all be in the inner thought system. Anvil shortbow. Based off of the naming, I wouldn't be surprised if it was called the Anvil Lance. Or the Anvil Longinus. Longinus. It sounds dirty. But famously, he was a Roman soldier who used his spear to spear Jesus' side in the Bible, and then he eventually converted to Christianity after that. So that's a famous myth. I don't know if it's true, if it's written in the Bible or something separate, but that would be, the Lance of Longinus was a famous relic that has been found and unfound so many different times. But so it's like a mythical weapon, which is what Anvil likes to do. So, and the idea of it calling it like a lance would work because that's what it's trying to do. But if it's more of an artillery piece, longbow works. Because that's the other thing that people don't realize. Longbow implies long-range firepower. Calling it a longbow makes sense in that context as well, as something that just shoots from the backfield and fucks up bigger ships. The Corsair punches but Jesus, it hard. Corsair is incredibly hard punching, but it doesn't have the armor to protect it. It's relied almost entirely on its shields because it's designed to be maneuverable or fast. Anime missile swarm boat would be the Polaris, not necessarily the. That's not really Anvil's thing. They don't do missiles. They do guns. Then definitely Anvil Trebuchet. That or a howitzer. Call it the Anvil howitzer. I don't know. I see Anvil going a more traditional battleship route, armed in some serious battery turrets. I agree, but I don't think for the size that they're looking at, I don't think that fits in terms of the role. Because CIG wouldn't sell battleships to players. They had the chance to sell the Bengals, but they haven't. So they've said that if they really wanted to, if they were really hurting for money and they needed to do something, they'd sell a Bengal, but they haven't. They won't sell battleships. The biggest they'll sell is a Javelin, and even then, CIG took one look at what they built with the Javelin and went, "There's too much space. We can't make this fun." So there's a reason why they haven't sold anything bigger than a Javelin, because it's not fun. Where the Perseus is really kind of like a mini battleship style, but it's small. A lot of people don't realize that the Perseus is tiny. It's not even as big as the Carrack, I want to say, or it's slightly bigger than the Hammerhead. It's small as fuck. It's not a huge ship. The Javelin's is a destroyer, not a battleship. Says every description, yeah. The Hammerhead is 15 meters longer. Yeah, so it's smaller than a Hammerhead. The Perseus is tiny. So, but like, it's hard to tell that scale when you look at it because it looks mean and big, but in reality, it's tiny. Do you see the Talon shield changing eventually to get closer to their lore? Possibly. I see them futzing around with the shield stuff later down the line. The start of what they're doing right now with the balancing passes for 314 is part of that, I think. The last we saw, there was the indefatigable class, which was a battleship that was, I think, Tavaran War era. And there has been mentions of it in the Kickstarter that they wanted to do a battleship, cruiser, and battle cruiser, but as ships that could be piloted by players. But they haven't since. Like, for instance, there was an escort carrier called the Pegasus that we haven't even seen for 6 years. They haven't even mentioned it for 6 years. We saw some initial screen caps like 2014, and that was it. We haven't seen it since. We don't know if it still exists. So the only capital ships we know about for sure are the Polaris, not the Nautilus is subcap, the Polaris, the Idris, the Javelin, and the Bengal. Those are the only ones we know about. And Star Noodle's coming. I really hope we get Noodles soon, man. I hope you're right about the longbow, Paul. It sounds amazing. CIG has been moving. That's another thing, is that CIG has been moving away from big, massively crewed ships and more to smaller cruise ships, which are between the 3 and 10 range for players to use. Almost all of the ships they've released in terms of big ships since the Javelin was sold have been 10 or less crew members. Every single one. Because CIG is trying to find that sweet spot of big multi-crew ships that are expensive to operate but can do a lot of damage and are still fun for players to use. You can find something for a player to do for almost everything. That's the kind of balance they're looking for, which is why the Perseus exists. It's why the Polaris exists. It's why the Nautilus exists. So I wouldn't expect this Anvil capital ship that's being worked on, that's almost assuredly being worked on, to be anything that is too big. So it can't be a big battleship. So it has to be smaller. But it also has to fit within the current meta of what CIG's already built in terms of balance-wise for big ships. There's only one type of ship that they haven't built, which is a big gun platform, which is Anvil's specialty. So you could call the Polaris a cruiser because cruisers were typically your fleet missile defense and short bombardment. So you could almost call the Polaris that. Yeah, in terms of size, it's weird because it's smaller than the Idris. Isn't the plan to also use AI for ships, though? CIG wants to try to move away from AI being for ships because it seems like CIG is uncomfortable with the idea of AI and NPCs being the stopgap for everyone. CIG has said many times that they want the choice to use NPCs and AI to have a drawback. They want players to be able to do them, but they also are fairly consistent on they'd rather build ships for players to have fun in than building ships for you to just chuck an NPC into an engine room and not think about it. So they, and here's the case. There's not been a single ship bigger than the Javelin. They said they're not going to sell anything as big as the Javelin again. And they haven't even released a ship that is bigger than the Idris to sell. Since they could have, but they haven't. The Polaris is the closest thing, and the Polaris has much smaller crew requirements than the Idris does. So, yeah, those are more world classifications in size. Yeah, but generally, people, when you say cruiser, people assume that cruisers are bigger than destroyers, and destroyers are bigger than destroyer escorts, and that kind of thing. Let the AI fly the ship, immediately spears the ship into the nearest object. Dang it. Yeah. It's hard to find 10 people, but 2 to 3 people seems easy to play with. Yeah. That's why I say like 3 to 10 seems to be the sweet spot, because you can do 3 people and then, 3 to 4 people. But if you need more than 4 people, you can get AI to kind of fill in some of those roles if you need to. Question, I think the Venom Merchant will grow or shrink? Likely grow, but we'll see. It's hard for me to tell because its role is so much bigger now, but I also expect it to be a ground-up rework than what we've had before. CIG is doing smaller ships because they realize that most players don't have enough friends to crew a ship larger than 3 people. That's true too. But even if you had larger ships, it would require more coordination. The more people you have, the more chaos is added. And the more chaos you have, the less coordination you can achieve. It requires a lot of practice and training. So. Any jump will take 30% off of the javelin when you lock into the jav and self-detonate it. That's a lot. That's some very specific testing there, art guy, Joe. Oh, you're almost on YouTube, try. I see that both. It's hard to find 10 people, but 2 to 3 people are easy to find and play with. Yeah. Even if you had a lot of players who's going to want to car track or radar for 6 hours, not very enjoyable for most. I don't think you'll see that though. I think here's the thing. I think most players will find something to do, but I don't think you're going to be sitting there at a radar screen for 6 hours. I think you'll go to a location and then you'll activate scanning and you'll go to an area of interest and continue to scan down. You'll have different locations where you're scanning down and then you come back. I think that's for a mission. And if players are getting bored with that, then they can switch up what they're doing. They don't have to just do that every time. The balance that CIG is looking to strike is to make gameplay interesting enough for you to try with bouts of extreme fun, but not something that is constantly dopamine hits to your brain, if that makes sense. Also, I guess a lot of people think they'll be driving around the capital ships all the time. It will not be economical or feasible. Pleasure cruising around in your Idris. No, it won't be. It's going to be incredibly expensive to do those things. You pull out your capital ships for events. Or if you're using your capital ship all the time, it's because you have an organization that's supporting you. And then you already have people who are going to be back doing your stuff. So. Turns on self-destruct after latching onto a larger ship. For science! The biggest crew requirement for the player seems to revolve around the hangar. If an Anvil builds the ship the size of a player, so without the hangar, it will need less crew. That's true too. I mean, what's the crew of the Perseus? Isn't it technically 3? I think the max crew is 5. And that's if you have someone who's operating the torpedoes in the front and the anti-missile battery in the back. So you have the pilot / captain. You have the 2 main guns. You have the torpedo, and you have the smaller turrets. So I think it's maybe 6 maximum. But the minimum crew is 3. So yeah, that's fine. What happened to the hype? The Titan suit? The hype is gone. It's not gone. The Titan suit's part of Squadron 42. It's a Squadron 42 asset, which is why we haven't seen it. 7, janitor. You can't forget the janitor. I also think that there's this perception that people won't do menial jobs. They'll do those jobs if you pay them well in game. And plenty of people, like myself included, don't necessarily want to be the captain of a grand starship. Would I operate a radar module on a Carrack for hours on end? You're damn right I would. If it was the people I was hanging out with were fun enough, yeah, why not? Throw me in a turret, I'll be fine. And there's a lot of people like that who don't necessarily have the time or the desire to risk their own shit. But if someone wants to pay them to do other shit, for them, yeah, sure, I'm not risking my shit. I want to be Scotty, yeah. A lot of people want to do that. They want to just walk around the engine bays and make sure everything's good. I mean, you're going to have the situations where the captains of these ships go, hey, we need to get to this point A and point B. And the engineer has to explain, we broke something, guys. We need to replace this part, but we don't have it on board. So we're not going to be able to get there unless we get some help. You know, that sort of thing. You prefer the Command 10 forward. Damn right I do. I think moving between jobs will make it a lot more fun as well. Yeah. If you scan a UA Javelin, the crew they have is 16 AI. I'm not sure what that's fully crewed Javelin, extra crew, or what. 16 AI is for every gun and the pilot. Because you have 15 guns and a pilot seat. And that ship isn't fully rendered out yet. So you also will have, eventually you'll have gunners for the main guns, which are separate right now. Plus you'll have the navigator, the pilot, the captain. There's supposed to be an entire squad of Marines that's supposed to live on board. So that's an entire 10 at least, if not bigger than that. So COB, Chief of Boat. Okay. Also, that would just be one watch. Yeah. I already know people who do menial jobs in games. I mean, you know, I love the Reclaimer, but I don't own it. I'd love to crew it though. Yeah, exactly. Let's wrap this up a little bit because we're getting a little bit over the time. So, any idea when we're getting ATC radio chatter? They're working on the ATC stuff right now. Apparently, they're revamping the ATC system at a fundamental level. So probably by the end of this year, if not by next year. It's not on the release view, though, so I'd assume it's probably going to be next year. But it could be one of those stealth editions they add kind of when it gets done. This is a question for Chad as well as Paul. Do any cap ships have drones? Yes. The Vulcan has drones. The Orion has drones. These aren't cap ships, but these are larger ships. The Carrack has drones. The Nautilus has drones. There's a lot of ships that have drones in them. But I feel like you could probably launch drones from any ship that has any kind of space to drop them in. You could probably launch drones from freaking... eventually you'll be able to drop the drones from a freaking Hercules. It sits at Fitz rules, as long as you can control it some way. The Apollo has drones, yeah. I don't know if the Corsair does. The Reclaimer... I don't know if the Reclaimer has drones. It might have drones. So your favorite ship is the Redeemer. I hate you. Joking. Have an awesome night, bud. Thank you, Striker. Javelin is a nice place to base an org from if you can keep the crew entertained. For this, I recommend having drop ships in the hangar and send out for players to do missions and later return. Yeah, stuff like that would help. I think, yeah, Javelin would be an org ship. It's one of those things that would require an entire org to support and could be really good for a lockdown of a system or a planet or a station. It'd do really good for that one. I want to say the Reclaimer has some drone stations. It might. I don't know. There's a room. I know there's a room. I don't know if it's a drone room, though. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, join us live Thursdays and Fridays, 8 p.m. 9 p.m. Pacific. I'm going by Central. 9 p.m. Eastern. And on Saturdays, we start at 1 p.m. Eastern. Go for 2 to 4 hours usually. 2 hours on Thursdays, 2 to 4 hours on Fridays. We live stream on twitch.tv/theastropub. The Astropub. So, and of course, we'll be releasing more lore content for Star Citizen. I'm actually working on 2 ideas right now. I'm going to release a lore video, which I don't know if we'll do very well, which postulates that Star Citizen is not a good universe. Star Citizen is a secret dystopia. And we'll talk about that. I'll break down my examples for this and what's going on, and that'll be released. It's going to be more of like a theory craft video in terms of the larger universe to help people understand, like underscore, like that Star Citizen's universe is not a good universe to live in. And it explains a lot about like the mentality. And then I'm also going to be doing a new series where I play a role of in-game Paul Shelley, who is going around from place to place and doing kind of like a travel documentary mixed with a historical documentary where I'll go to like Loreville, talk about the history of Loreville, go to the Central Business District, talk about the Hurstons, that sort of thing. And, that video is going to be, those videos can be between 10 and 20 minutes long, but it's using in-game footage of me traveling around and trying to do that. So, but I got to capture my FOIP stuff. I got to capture scenes with camera movements. I have to kind of do those sort of things. So, run with Kane. Yes, art guy. So the idea of being kind of more in-game visuals mixed with an actual in-lore or in-fiction kind of setting, but talking about the lore, give you a little more inspiration, that kind of stuff. So, speaking of good universe, did you see the Temple Institute video on why the universe doesn't work? Oh, I have. It's terrible. That video is absolutely not researched well. It's filled with like weird statements and weird opinions that don't seem to have any basis in fact. It's just it's an hour-long video that could have been a 20-minute video and is still very unfactual. I'm going to do a video countering that at some point, but I have to wait for another big event so that I can release it around the same time they'll release the next video. So. When's the lore video coming out? The second lore video is going to be the in-fiction one's probably going to be later in October. In August. That one I can't do frequently because it's going to require a lot of I have to get to know how to film in Star Citizen, like how to use the camera system, getting everything right with the right stuff, and possibly even getting people to help me out with that. So we'll see. In-game Loreville history should be told from the prison, accurate setting visually. Do I think the Corsair will be better in the Connie for solo bounty hunting missions? Possibly, but they're both very multi-crew ships. I wouldn't use them for solo bounties. Anyways, y'all, I gotta wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching us. If you enjoyed this, I also do a Patreon. If you want to support us there, you can subscribe to us on Twitch for that as well. At the very least, for free, you can follow us on Twitch, subscribe to us on YouTube. Both are absolutely free. We're trying to work on getting up to 15K. On Twitch, we're currently at 13.497, so we're almost at 13.5 on YouTube, on Twitch. And on YouTube, we are at 9,954. We're trying to get 10K before the end of the year. So we're only 46 subs away from 10K subs. Number go up, make brain happy. So please do that. Thank you all again. Like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. And remember, ex Historia ad Astra.